Sometimes it's just love at first sight, and you gotta shoot your shot on someone that you like, but when it doesn't work out, it could potentially be viewed as a freak up. We got a story on that one in just a bit, but first, today I freaked up by accidentally becoming a Catholic priest. As with most of these stories, this didn't happen today, but several months ago. I had a day off from work and decided to have some alone time. Being the religious man I am, I went and drove to the local cathedral of my state and sat on the steps, reading the Bible, overlooking the city below, and just enjoying some peace and quiet. It was a chilly fall day, and I was leaning against a pillar, resting on the steps, when a woman approached me. "Excuse me, do you know what the photography policy is here? Do you know where we're allowed to take pictures?" I glanced behind the woman and saw a group of about 10 men and women in their nicest formal attire. I particularly noticed a woman with her hair nicely done, wearing a long, flowing white dress. Obviously, this was a wedding party here to take some photos, and the woman I was speaking to was the photographer. As it so happened, I actually did know the photography policy for the cathedral. My wife is an avid photographer, and we had taken photos from the hill overlooking the city just a few weeks prior. I got up and walked over to the couple, along with the photographer. I pointed out the approved photo spots, explained the policy to the group, and told them about some other parts of the cathedral that would make for excellent shots without violating any of the guidelines. I also gave my most heartfelt congratulations to the couple, wishing them well and an amazing wedding day. Everyone was so thankful and happy to have run into me. As I turned to leave, the couple asked if they could take a photo with me. Odd, I thought, but why not? We took a quick photo on the steps before I got ready to leave. As I was getting ready to depart, the wife and photographer approached me. The wife said, "Thank you so much for your help, Father. It's really great that the clergy here is so welcoming and helpful. We're from out of state, getting married here because our family wants us to. I appreciate your time with your busy schedule." I froze. Glanced down at myself. I'm dressed in a nice shirt and slacks with a cross necklace hanging out, but I definitely don't look like a priest. Maybe she thought I was a priest in casual attire? No idea. Unsure of what to do, all I said was congratulations again before quickly heading to my car and getting out of there. To this day, I realize that some couple has a wedding photo with me in it and a story about the nice priest who helped them out. Too awkward at the time to inform them of their error, so I guess I was promoted, just from being in the right place at the right time. My wife will be surprised to learn we're suddenly Catholic, and I'm now a priest. Hey, just gotta fake it till you make it, right? I don't think this is necessarily a freak up. I mean, you'll probably never see these people again. They're from out of state, and you made their day. You really helped kind of enhance the experience, so just own this one. Prestigious Fan 3122 replied, "Once, when working for a relief agency, I interviewed people who had been affected by a natural disaster, and an office at a local Catholic church had temporarily donated to use for that purpose. I'm not Catholic, and this was in a rural area. A very nice young woman came in to tell me about his grandmother, and all the generations Grandma was supporting, and what had happened to their home and property. Toward the end of our conversation, he asked me if I was, quote, one of those, what do you call them, nuns? I burst out laughing. I was married with kids, and not even Catholic. I was wearing a black jumper dress that hit me well below the knee, with a white blouse under it. I asked the guy why he thought I was a nun. He told me it was my outfit. Okie dokie. Back at the office, I told the colleague of mine about this, and we both had a good laugh. A week or so later, I showed up in the same outfit on the same day that she showed up in a very short, tight-fitting black jumper with a white blouse under it. As we passed each other going opposite directions in the hall, she sort of nodded her head and greeted me with a very dignified, "Sister." We had never noticed it before, but it turned out that we both wore our black jumpers with white glasses underneath on the same day at least once a month. Also, hey everybody, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these Today I Freaked Up videos, it would be amazing if you liked the video or commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. Now then, our next story is, today I freaked up by accidentally reprogramming the Call Mickey Mouse button on the Disney store phone to auto-call my dad at work. When I was about 15, I was at a Disney store in a mall, and one of the features was a phone that you could call different Disney characters from, and then have a fake, pre-recorded conversation with that character. While I was using it, I noticed the cover was loose, and when I pulled it up, I saw it was just a normal phone underneath. So I did what any idiot would do and dialed my dad's work number and said hi. I didn't mention I was at the Disney store or the way I had called him. He was mildly annoyed, and the short call ended. If only he knew what was coming. In actuality, by dialing his number, I had unknowingly reprogrammed the Mickey Mouse button to call my dad at work. So I walk away and go about my afternoon. Important to note, this was early 1990s and very much pre-cell phone, meaning until I got home several hours later, there was no way to contact me. And over those few hours, every few minutes, my dad's work phone would ring, and a cute little kid would say to my dad, "Does Mickey Mouse have a message for me?" Well, the first few times my dad was just confused and hung up, but it didn't stop. In fact, the frequency began to pick up, and my dad, assuming he was being relentlessly pranked while he was trying to work, finally just lost his cool and yelled into the phone at some poor kid, "Yeah, Mickey has a message for you. Freak off!" Needless to say, the call stopped. I assume someone reported that to the store and they got it sorted. But when he told me the story later that evening, I just burst out laughing. Then I explained everything. It would be a lie to say he immediately saw the humor in it, but he certainly does now. Yeah, this is one of those things, like in the moment, definitely super annoying, not a fan, but yeah, you laugh about it. And once it kind of sinks in like, hey, this was an honest mistake, and there are far, far worse ways to get prank called at work. Richard Delmore commented, "There was a story in the news years ago about a hotel that ran ads for its event catering services, but accidentally listed the wrong phone number. The woman whose phone number it actually was started getting calls from people wanting to book events, and she kept referring them to the correct number for months. When she contacted the hotel to get them to correct the ads, they evidently blew her off, so she just started accepting bookings for whatever date the caller requested. When angry customers started to show up at the hotel for their event only to be told no such reservation existed, then they got motivated to correct the number in the ads." Fearchar posted, "My friend's phone number was one digit different from that of a pizza place. When someone misdialed and ordered a pizza, their dad would go ahead and take the order. My coworker's direct number was very similar to that of the medical examiner, and he got a lot of calls from people checking on their loved ones. But instead of pranking them, he'd give them the right number and forward them." Our next story is, "Today, I freaked up by eating my coworker sandwich. This technically happened yesterday, but reached a resolution today. So yesterday, I walked into work a little before 10 a.m. There was a DoorDash delivery from Starbucks sitting by the door addressed to the name Felix. It's important to note that there's nobody who works here by that name, but I work at a hair salon and assumed it was for someone's client. A little time goes by, and one of my coworkers goes around asking if anyone had ordered DoorDash, and got a unanimous no. A couple hours later, I see the sandwich from that order sitting on the table in the break room. There were 3 other people in there, and I asked if we had ever figured out who it belonged to. They all said no, and one of my coworkers, I'll call her Jessica, said that I was free to eat it if I'd like. It's one of my favorite things from the Starbucks menu, so I jumped on the offer. About an hour later, I was chilling in the break room while my client's color was processing. Another coworker of mine, I'll call her Ivy, walked in, shuffles some things around on the table, then asks, "Where's my sandwich?" I froze. I wanted to speak up and tell her what happened, but I just froze. The salon owner comes in and they start searching the break room, and even the trash to see if it had been thrown away by accident. Thankfully, at this point, my timer went off to wash out my client's color, so I slowly and quietly just backed out of the room. I know that was a bit immature, but seriously, I was panicking. This morning, I get to work and 2 of my coworkers jokingly tell me that I'm in trouble. Jessica said she overheard Ivy talking about her missing sandwich and came clean about what happened. She told Ivy that it wasn't my fault, as I had been told I could have it, and they both had a good laugh about it. I texted Ivy to apologize, both for eating her sandwich and for not coming clean in the moment. I told her it was 100% an accident and that I felt like a jerk in that moment and just panicked. I asked her to send me her Starbucks order so that I could pick some up for her the next time we worked together. She responded that she wasn't mad at all. It was just a misunderstanding and I was sweet for offering. She said not to worry about buying her Starbucks, but I could bring her a Red Bull one day if I feel so inclined. Heat of the moment, they say pressure will bust a pipe and people just act out of pocket, out of character when they're extremely nervous or flustered. So, not gonna hate on the fact that she didn't come clean in the moment, but, I think the next day, fessing up, offering to buy a replacement sandwich. That's how you handle situations like that. It was an honest misunderstanding. Fango Wango replied, "Is this panicking/freezing up something frequent for you in stressful situations? I'm only asking because your coworker was very gracious and kind to believe you and forgive you, but not everyone would do so, especially since you were literally in the room when they talked and searched for it. Plus, you just left without saying anything. To a lot of people, that would definitely look like you tried to hide it. Something to work on if it's a weakness." And OP replied to this, "It's not entirely uncommon. In fight or flight situations, I tend to lean more towards freeze. Some context is that I'm autistic, and sometimes when I get surprised or overwhelmed, my brain sort of shuts down and I have difficulty and sometimes an inability to speak. That sort of happened here, where I wanted to say something, kept opening my mouth to do so, but nothing would come out. This is something I'm working on and have gotten better about over the years, but I was so shocked in the moment that I just couldn't find my words. I didn't plan on keeping it a secret forever and had every intention of coming clean and making it up to her once I found my words, but Jessica beat me to it." Our next story is, "Today I freaked out by thinking I had indigestion and made my family cancel our trip to Norway. Happened earlier in the week, Tuesday to be specific. All last week, I felt like I had a bad case of indigestion and constipation. Wednesday during the day, my stomach hurt pretty good, but by late afternoon, it felt a little better. Even went on a short bicycle ride with some friends, 20 miles. Saturday, my wife and I are going to do a 60-mile ride, but I could only do 40. I was flat out exhausted and couldn't figure out why. Sunday, I was really out of it, exhausted, hardly got off the couch or my bed, and hadn't taken a crap since Thursday, and it wasn't much of one given how much I had been eating. My wife rocks and went to the store and got me some laxatives. As we were getting a little nervous, we were scheduled to go on a vacation to Norway with my mom, sister, and her husband and kids on Wednesday. I wanted whatever was going on resolved before then because I didn't want it to fix itself while on the 12-hour flight, if you know what I mean. No one wants to be that guy that forces a transatlantic flight to do an emergency landing because they crap all over the place. I drank all that she brought home and prayed for the best. I hardly slept at all Sunday night, on into Monday morning, anxiously waiting for the laxatives to do their thing. Finally, early Monday morning, it was game on. I felt so much better after recreating that one scene from Dumb and Dumber. I called in sick to work just to be safe, as in if the laxatives had a round 2 or 3 in store for me, and because I needed the rest. Progressively through the day, my stomach started to hurt again, and I was thinking, uh-oh. I woke up Tuesday morning around 4:30 due to the pain and decided to go in. The urgent care at the hospital didn't open until 7 o'clock, so I got myself comfortable on the couch and drank a little coffee. As I was heading out the door, my wife asked if I wanted her to come with it first, and I said no, but then thought for a second and changed my mind. We made the hour drive to the hospital. We live in a rural area, and got there just before they opened. I got checked in and was seen by a doctor right away. I explained my symptoms. He ordered a blood test and did the usual things like listen to my stomach, put a finger up my butt, etc. He also ordered a CT scan, which piqued my curiosity about what was really going on. Shortly after the blood draw and CT scan, my wife asked for my phone and she opened up our hospital's app and saw that my blood sample results were already live on it. A couple of things were off the charts, so we Googled it and everything came back saying that I had an infection. At this time, we started texting my family saying something is up and we'll keep them posted. The nurse came back in and hooked me up to an IV with a hurried pace, which further made me think that things weren't quite normal. The doctor came back in and introduced us to another doctor, the surgeon on duty. The surgeon said he wasn't sure how I was walking, talking, and didn't have a fever because my appendix had burst, as in last week, possibly as early as Wednesday. The CT showed that the infection had spread to my colon and that if they operated right then and there, I would lose about a third of it. I'm thinking, well, looks like I'm not going to Norway. I end up getting admitted to the hospital, put on a clear liquid diet, and started a regimen of antibiotics. The surgeon said that during COVID, hospitals were slammed and couldn't always do appendix surgery right away, so they would give patients a heavy dose of antibiotics until they could fit them in, and found that in about 90% of cases, it worked really well. He said that if all goes well with me going this route, then when he does operate on me, he'll only need to remove my appendix. We're all for this, and the recovery time is significantly shorter, and there's less chance of complications. My brother-in-law is a rock star, not only because he did all the planning for the trip, but he was able to cancel everything and get refunded. And to top it off, everyone came up to visit me in the hospital. During my 3-day, 2-night stay, I got stable enough to go home, so here we are now, taking it easy, eating antibiotics like they're Pez candies, and waiting for my next doctor's appointment when we can reassess my status and schedule the surgery. I'm hopeful to get it done sooner than later because sitting on the couch in the summer is killing me. I just want to go ride my bike. Looks like we're going to shoot for next June for attempt number 2 for Norway, which we're all really looking forward to. I'm glad I went in before we left too, because no one wants to end up spending all their vacation in a hospital in a foreign country. Well, glad to hear that you were able to discover what was wrong in time to do something about it. The vacation can wait, Norway will still be a thing a year from now, and you'll have a much, much more enjoyable experience then. Firebrat1978 replied, "Glad you're okay. I remember in the early 2000s when I was in grad school, my stomach started bothering me the week before Thanksgiving. I figured the stress of grad school had given me an ulcer or something. No big deal though. I was somewhat uncomfortable, but nothing more. I was supposed to visit family in another state for Thanksgiving, so after a week, when my stomach still wasn't better, I went to the doctor, just in case she could give me a med so I could enjoy my trip better. My doctor examined me, seemed puzzled, then brought in a second doctor to examine me, then immediately sent me to a general surgeon's office in the same building. After the surgeon examined me, I was sent to the attached hospital for an appendectomy. The surgeon at my post-surgical appointment said that my appendix was on the verge of rupturing. I, too, had an atypical presentation and had been walking around for at least a week with appendicitis. I honestly would not have gone to the doctor if I hadn't been planning to travel later that second week. We do exist. Our next story is, today I freaked up by getting a large group of people to steal from Disney. Not today, but a few years ago. My family and I went to Disney World and did the 3-day, 3-park thing. We've never been, and this was a first large trip for a park. We started off at Animal Kingdom, and like always, Florida was hitting 90 degrees with brutal humidity. It was still 50 degrees back home, so we were all instantly melting out there. About 20 minutes into walking into the park, we saw a cart sitting in the middle of the hallway with a big tub of ice water, but no worker in sight. I asked my dad, how about we get them, and he either joking or seriously said, they're free with the admission, just grab one. I took that at face value and ran up and grabbed a bottle for each of us. While I was doing that, another family came up and asked how much they were. I obviously didn't know, so I repeated what my dad said. They're free. They started grabbing bottles too. Then a third family saw all of us helping ourselves and grabbed bottles too. One by one, people trickled in and grabbed a bottle for themselves. 30 bottles later, and more people are walking up. The cart attendant finally shows up and starts asking for money to the new family that joined the hydration heist. We were still standing nearby, enjoying our ice-cold stolen water, and quickly walked off, pretending it never happened. Yeah, so, honest mistake with a hell of a butterfly effect there. My goodness, 30 bottles of water. I wonder how much of that they actually ended up getting paid for. But you know what, it's Disney. I think they'll overcome that loss. Scuttlebud replied, one time I was at Hershey Park and wanted to get some snacks from a vending machine. I didn't have any singles, but I had a $5 bill. After I put the $5 in the machine, it only credited me for $1, and I was only 13 years old or so around that time, so that was a huge loss for me. I was really upset. Anyway, I decided to make the most of it and enter the code for a pack of Mint Lifesavers, one of the only things less than $1, 75 cents. The machine spat out my lifesavers, 25 cents change, and to my astonishment, it also gave back my $5. Then I looked closely, and the machine clearly says it doesn't accept $5 bills. I tried it again, and it worked a second time. Then my parents made me stop. Lame, but it was nice while it lasted. Next story. Today, I freaked out by sleeping with my coworker, but not sleeping with my coworker. Final update. Hi guys, long time no see. For those of you new to this, moral of the story is that I, 25-year-old male, began working at this new job, and I was going out to the bar with this girl, 34-year-old female, I worked with, and I slept in our bed. 2 times without having hooked up. Then, everybody I know was telling me that I missed all the signals and that she was supposedly trying to jump my bones. For those of you who've waited, this is the final update. We went to the bar tonight. This is the last time her and I are going to be hanging out for a minute because she got fired from the job we both worked at. Not for anything relating to this, by the way, but her and I went out tonight to the same bar, got to talk about it, had a good time all around. Unfortunately, for some of y'all who keep suggesting that I just go for the kiss and ask questions later, it did not work out like that. I firmly believe that it's not the move for someone like me to make, so I'm going to continue doing what I feel comfortable doing. So I asked her straight up for the last time, be honest if she was just sharing a bed so that I don't drive home drunk, or if she was trying to sleep with me. She did confirm, and in great detail, she's not in any way sexually attracted to me, but she does enjoy the crap out of my company and feels comfortable around me. She doesn't think I'm gay, she knows I wasn't trying to make her uncomfortable, we both just wanted to clear the air. So it's said and done. I'm sorry if this isn't the ending y'all wanted, but it just didn't work out that way. Here's the thing, I'm cool with it either way. I enjoy her company. I also enjoy her bed because it's comfy. Would hooked up have been a really nice bonus? Absolutely. Was it necessary or mandatory? No. I don't regret this in any way. She did beg for my number so that we can stay in touch and keep going out to drink, so at least we're good friends. I'm cool with it, truly. Well, credit for you, OP, with being okay with this arrangement. It's one thing to have platonic female friends, but like to sleep in the same bed and not have any kind of, inkling like, maybe we should hook up right now. I don't know, that's some tier level restraint, so good for you. The little dancing man replied, as a man with a lot of platonic female friends, I understand completely. It confuses a lot of people and they make assumptions, but at the end of the day, homies are homies. Sometimes setting the boundary is necessary, but for the most part, they know who I am as a person and don't feel encroached on. This does make meeting women I want to sleep with a little harder and makes men have a different look on me, but I'm just me and can't be anyone else. Our next story is, today I freaked up. I told a rich friend of mine that his lifestyle wasn't like everyone else's. Okay, so I have a friend who's quite rich. Recently we spoke about things, work, moving house, etc., and he mentioned how much money he got off his work. Another friend made a joke how he could buy out houses. My rich friend seemed confused at this, and we explained how much we make, how much we spend, etc., and he seemed shook, legit now feeling ashamed of himself. He went to call someone, maybe an assistant or something. We all assumed he was joking. Turns out he wasn't, and he found out how much others make. He seemed genuinely shocked and ashamed of himself, now panicking and feeling as if he freaked up our friendship. He thinks he's a jerk, ignorant, etc., and was panicking. We tried to help by getting him to play video games with us, but he seems to not be able to keep his mind off it. No one believes it, no one thinks less of him, we all care for him, but he just can't stop worrying about it all. He feels he offended us and is now freaking out. I feel that it may also be my fault. When I first heard how much he made, I was shocked. I knew he was rich, but still, I made comments on how much I had a month, what I used it for, etc., which seemed to worsen his realization. Maybe if I had stopped the conversation beforehand, maybe he wouldn't be in such a state. I don't know, this sounds more like a him problem than a you problem. When you made the comment, it wasn't in poor taste. You didn't want to try to make him feel bad for being a little bit wealthier, a little bit more privileged, and you've even tried to backtrack and try to make him still feel like one of your friends, and he's having some sort of panic-ridden reaction to this, and not to make light of it, but that's just something that he's going to have to sort out on his own, but you should not feel responsible for this one bit. Corporation T-shirt replied, the mother of an ex of mine came from old money. She was once driving through a normal suburban neighborhood, and her mom asked if the houses were worker summer cottages. She had to explain that no, in fact, these are people's houses. Our next story is, today I freaked up by asking the hot merch guy for his number. Now I'm mortified. So recently I, 18-year-old female, had the most embarrassing but kind of bold experience, and now I can't stop thinking about it, and not in a good way. I went to this small concert with one of my best friends. We bought the tickets months ago, and the singer has been one of my favorite artists for years, so I was really excited. I expected a long line and chaos, but when we showed up there were literally only 3 people waiting for the concert. Since we had time to unalive, we went to the merch table to get sweatshirts. Here's where the awkwardness started. I only brought cash, $100, and of course they didn't take it. My friend had to transfer money and use her card, which led to a whole mess. You know, card declining, trying to swap sizes, lots of sorry and actually, can I get a small instead? The guy working the stand was super nice about it though. Chill, patient, maybe a little flirty. I'm bad at reading signals, but either way, he was hot. Like super hot. Tall, muscular, face card never declined. You get it. Anyway, we went into the show. Only like 100 people. Really intimate vibe. And the artist was so good. One of his main messages was about how it's better to shoot your shot and take an L than to live with a what if. You can probably see where this is going. Towards the end of the concert, hot merch guy walks on stage. Turns out he's the singer's brother, and 22, and lives in LA. I'm 18 and from Colorado, heading to college on the East Coast in 2 months, so not exactly a realistic start. Still, my friend hyped me up, and call it a post-concert, or maybe I was just high on life, but I figured I might as well go for it. After the show, we were chatting with the artist, and I asked nervously if his brother would be weirded out if I asked for his number. He kinda just repeated the advice from earlier, but added, he gets that a lot. I'm not sure if that was encouragement or a soft letdown. Anyway, I saw a hot brother back at the merch table talking to 2 older girls. Before I could chicken out, I literally interrupted them and said, hey, sorry to bug you, but does your number come with the sweatshirts? Who says that? It just came out of my mouth. He looked kinda confused, and I had to remind him that I was the problematic sweatshirt girl from earlier. Then I clarified I was asking for his number, and to my surprise, he said sure and typed a number into my phone. I walked away thinking, OMG, I just did that. And one of the girls who was talking to him laughed and gave me a low high five. I couldn't tell if she was being supportive or making fun, but I didn't really think about it too hard. Once I walked over to my friend, I texted him something simple. Hey, this is my name, the girl in the pink dress from the concert. And he hasn't responded. Now I'm spiraling. Was I super awkward? Did he give me a fake number? Did I weird him out? I'm not usually this bold, and the more I think about it, the more mortified I feel. At least I tried, right? This is a very wholesome story. 18 years old, shooting your shot. It's not often that the girl asks out the guy. Love to hear stories like that. But no shame at all, OP. I'm super proud of you for even working up the courage to make that move, and, hopefully we get a positive update sometime. Kate in Dark replied, this was adorable. I wouldn't get too hung up on it. If he texts back, great. If not, his loss. Props for putting yourself out there. Also, him not responding is not a statement of you as a person at all. People are weird and do weird things. There could be a litany of reasons why he wouldn't or couldn't respond, and honestly, I wouldn't even concern yourself with them. Hold the night's memories in warm regard and use the experience to build on your confidence. You had the courage to use a pickup line and got someone's number. My advice would be to revel in that and let his response be a bonus rather than something contingent on your own behavior. Today, I freaked out by thinking a disabled child was an owl. I've had a job in a pub for a while, serving drinks, that sort of thing. It was quite busy one day. As I was making some drinks, I hear this noise. It was this far-off owl-sounding hooting. I had to pause a couple of times to confirm I wasn't going mad. I asked my coworker, can you hear that? And they said, what? I said, it sounds like an owl. Then I start asking everyone very vocally, can anybody hear that? Is there an owl outside? Turns out, behind the pillar next to the bar, not visible to me, was a critically disabled child in a wheelchair, maybe 12 years old, making a series of groaning and hooting noises. It was obvious immediately how severe his disability was, and I just had to look away and pretend I hadn't confused him with a bird of prey. I mean, if you're hearing sounds that aren't traditionally associated with human beings, I don't see any shame in this. Yeah, it could be seen as insensitive, but that wasn't your intention, and you felt bad afterwards, so no harm here. It's not like you called him an owl or something like that. Blue Crowned replied, I did something similar at my job in phone customer support. I started talking about parrots because I thought I could hear one in the background of my call, and the lady goes, oh, that's my autistic son. Morbid and Creepifying replied, I have a small homestead and I keep chickens, only hens. I've previously had a rooster, but I'm in too much of a NIMBY municipality to risk keeping one. Hadn't had a rooster in about 3 years. Brother-in-law comes to visit. We're showing him a few changes we've made and he goes, man, why's your rooster making that noise? And I go, noise do you mean?" The noise happens again. He goes, "That one! I've never heard such a weird noise. Gotta be a rooster." To which I responded, "That's not a rooster. We don't have one. That's the, I assume, autistic child a few houses up. It literally never stops." He was so embarrassed. Our next story is, today I freaked up accidentally calling out an emergency code in a hospital waiting room. This happened a while ago when I was undergoing daily radiation treatments after a lumpectomy. The waiting area for radiation is divided into men's and women's and is sort of a combination locker room/lounge area. I was chatting with the other women, and one elderly lady happened to mention that she was there waiting for her husband, who was on the other side getting treatment for bladder cancer. When her 80-something husband stepped into the room with his hoodie unzipped, he needed his wife's assistance to zip him up, I called out jokingly, "Heads up, ladies, man on the floor." Then I commented, "Oh, look at that slab of beefcake showing off." He grinned and assumed a couple of flexing his biceps poses, and everyone laughed, and some applauded. Suddenly, 4 nurses and aides ran into the room with a sense of urgency and stopped abruptly when they saw the laughter and clapping. "Who," one angry nurse asked in measured phrases, "called out a man on the floor alert?" "Oops," I sheepishly confessed, adding it was just a joke, to lighten the mood. They were not amused, but after they left, the crowd in the lounge laughed even more. So I guess I did brighten some folks' day, but not so much the attending staff. Radiation patients typically wear a zippered hoodie with nothing underneath for appointments to avoid the time spent changing out of clothing and locking it in a locker. Again, this is another case of an honest mistake, and as you said, OP, you brightened a lot of people's days, and spread laughter. The world needs a little bit more of that. Zora Galacticus replied, "When I worked at Walmart, they had phones spaced every so often throughout the store. You just had to dial pound 96 to do anything overhead page. We paged all kinds of random stuff. The best one was when I came around the corner to see everybody had busted those little plastic tubs of peas open all over the floor. There were peas everywhere. I paged, 'We need maintenance to aisle 24. Somebody peed all over the floor. I repeat, there's pee all over the floor in aisle 24. Maintenance came pushing the cart with all the hazmat gear, only to see peas instead of pee. They were not amused. Next story. Today I freaked up. The time I accidentally cheated on a college course. Not today, but years ago. So I was in my freshman year of college and found myself looking for an elective course and wanted to take Psychology 101. My degree had nothing to do with psychology, but I was interested in the topic. The teacher was a no-nonsense type who was very passionate about the subject and was very much the kind of professor that weeded out freshmen by making the course extremely difficult, with 4 exams that made up the entire grade. I was intimidated, but he was also an amazing teacher, so I decided to stay signed up. The number 1 rule in his class was no notes during tests. If we used any outside sources, he personally would expel us not only from the class, but from the university itself. I'm not sure if he had actual grounds to do this, but it definitely made the class more attentive. Now on to how I messed up. Months later, I was getting ready for my second test of the year and noticed that I also had another test for a history class coming up, so I decided to schedule it one after the other. We had a computer system so that students could self-schedule when to take these exams in a computer lab monitored by staff. The history test was open book. Psychology test was not. You can probably guess where this is going. I genuinely confused which test was supposed to be open book and took my psychology test with notes. I did a cram session before the test, so I had my notes in my bag as I didn't have time to drop them off at the dorms. And I didn't notice my mistake until after the test was over when I clicked on the history test, which mentioned it was open book on the first page. My stomach dropped, and I quickly looked around to see the person monitoring the exams was on their laptop, and I had no idea what to do. Should I tell her? Keep quiet? Take this as a lesson to be more aware of instructions in the future? Would they expel me over this mistake? How on earth can I explain this accidental cheating without sounding like an excuse? I wrestled with this for a couple of minutes and eventually decided to chalk this up as a blessing that no one noticed and to just be more aware in the future. I took my history test, retook my psychology test without using my notes that time, and went back to the dorm. The next day, I got an email from the professor. Due to some tech errors in the system, he couldn't get our results in the system the week before we were dismissed from the school for break. It was Thanksgiving break. So he asked for students to come to his office so he can tell us personally our score. If you're wondering why he didn't just email it to us, honestly, I don't know either. I almost didn't even want to show up because I knew I passed, but was at least curious about the percentage, so I decided to head over on the last day before break. Anyway, I had no classes that day and decided to head over to his office early. But when I get to the building and turn the corner to his door, I nearly bumped into another woman around my age, practically running out of his office, crying her eyes out. I thought she must have failed the test and immediately started to feel guilty again. The professor greeted me and must have noticed the concern on my face, and he told me that a moderator caught her cheating off a neighbor and he had to expel her from the class, and explained he illegally had to inform the head of department and it was up to them what would happen to her. Immediately, I felt like the worst person ever, and after sitting down and hearing that I passed, I think it was 87 out of 100, I told him I had something important to say. And I confessed. I told him that I unintentionally cheated on his test. His jaw dropped and asked me for more info, so for the next few minutes, we talked back and forth as I explained that I had another test in a different class that was open book and genuinely got my wires crossed, and it was a complete accident. I even told him that I went back to the test and retook it again based off memory and deliberately changed some of the answers to wrong answers to remedy my mistake. This was true, by the way. The class allowed for one retake per test that's open for those who failed it, but when I realized my mistake, I retook it immediately after my history test without using my notes this time. After explaining the story, he noted that he was genuinely curious why there was a retake the same day as the first attempt, and then got real quiet. His only question after was, "Why on earth would you tell me? I wouldn't have known, and you could have just walked on out and gotten away with this scot-free." I told him that I was already feeling guilty enough, but seeing the woman before me leave the office devastated about being expelled for cheating made me think how unfair it would be if I got away with it like this. Turns out, years later, I learned that I'm autistic, and intense rule following is one of the signs of that. I hated that I was getting away with cheating, even though it was on accident, because it was breaking the rules, and I personally couldn't stand for not following the rules. He got real quiet again, and I could feel my heart pounding. I was absolutely certain I was going to be expelled, and waiting for him to say something was excruciating. But just when I was about to cry from the stress of it, he just looked at me and we had this exchange. Professor says, "Have a good Thanksgiving break." Me, what? I don't understand. Look, I have to lay it to you, but never in all my years of teaching have I ever had a student fully admit to cheating like this. And to be frank, I probably wouldn't believe this was an accident on any other day, but I don't think you have a reason to lie about it, and admitting this shows integrity. More than I see amongst other students. I mean, anyone with half a brain would just be happy they pulled a fast one over me. I'm not exactly known for being a forgiving teacher here. And I go, I just knew this was wrong, and I couldn't stand the idea of passing like this. The professor just says, "Enjoy your break. Get out of my office." I just sat in shock and asked if I was still enrolled, and he just waved me off to dismiss me with a "Go before I change my mind and fail you now." I quickly gathered my stuff and hightailed it out of there as fast as I could. Now, there was a punishment of sorts for my accidental cheating, but it wasn't directed at me specifically. After that test, professors started assigning one of his teacher assistants to be with the test monitor to keep track of all students of his class taking tests from now on, because he wanted someone more aware of his testing requirements to watch the students. I was never called back into his office and wasn't expelled, but he later emailed me saying that since the retake was a lower score, he's going to log that as my final score, and I should assume that as my personal punishment. He also warned me to never do this again, which, yeah, obviously, and had me schedule future tests so that it never fell on the same day as tests from other classes. I got through the year knowing I most definitely did not deserve mercy in this situation, but was so grateful that I did everything I could to comply with his extra rules. I ended up passing the class with a B+, and to this day, I still can't believe I wasn't expelled for my mistake, and thankfully, never had an experience like that again. So I'm looking at this through two lenses. One, how I would treat this situation today at this point in my life, and two, how I would have done this back when I was in college, right? Late teens, early 20s. College me absolutely would have taken this secret to the grave and just taken that passing grade. Never told anyone, but I think as you grow and you mature, you just kind of get a little bit more integrity and moral obligation, so I probably would have fessed up too. You're a better person than IOP, and I think that the professor realized that, and that's why they didn't flunk you. Slapshots1515 replied, I have to ask what this university is, because my friends got accused of cheating off each other at a very major public university, and they were computer programmers that essentially learn the same things and develop the same way. They went through a review board. No prof would have had the authority to expel them. And OP replied to this, I don't feel comfortable sharing that information, but honestly, I think he was just saying that he could expel us from the university to scare students. He definitely could expel students from his class, though, and since he taught the only Psychology 101 class, getting expelled from that would be similar to being expelled from university because psychology majors wouldn't be able to move forward with that major. Our next story is, today I freaked up ignoring my appendicitis. So today is day 5 in the hospital, post-op, and I'm slowly crawling back to life. Well enough to make this post. Last Sunday, I felt a slight uncomfortable tightening sensation in my abdomen, and honestly, it was easy enough to ignore. Didn't think much of it. The next day, it got a little worse, but honestly, still totally manageable. Didn't bother me one bit. Tuesday, it was the same until the evening. I became suddenly very nauseous with a slight fever, and I threw up once and honestly almost instantly felt better. We did call the night doctor and they advised us to take some paracetamol, Tylenol for the Americans, and call them back in an hour. And I felt good enough to go back to sleep. Fever had settled mostly. They did advise us to call our own family doctor in the morning. In hindsight, all the signals were there, and as I'm typing this out, Reddit, I know. The next day I awoke to find my pain mostly gone. I only had a pulling sensation on the right side of my stomach. I got suspicious at this point and did call our family doctor. I was asked to come in and she ran an array of tests, some blood tests and some light stretching movements to test for pain. No fever, which I could all do without issue. Supposedly, one of the symptoms is pain. I had none. The only saving grace was a slight elevation in my blood's infection value. She called the surgical doctor at a local hospital who wanted me to come immediately. Arriving at the hospital, I was made to wait in the ER while blood tests were being done. They came in shortly and showed a wide array of problematic results. I was led to do an ultrasound after. A kind technician doctor there did a scan and quickly stopped with an, "Oh, sir, your appendix is quite inflamed and you'll have to be operated on with a degree of urgency." And so it happened. I was brought up to surgery prep and a few hours later, they operated on me. The kicker? It had already mostly necrosed. All kinds of bacteria had leaked into the surrounding tissue. What could have been a quick surgery and a near instant discharge has now become an already 5-day recovery, and counting, with horse dosages of antibiotics. In the last days, I haven't slept at all. I had near constant 39 degrees Celsius, 102 degrees Fahrenheit, fever, and overall really did not like life. I'm a little better. Fever now has set down to 38 degrees Celsius, or 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I feel so sick from all the antibiotics. I miss my wife. I miss my baby. I miss my bed. Man, if only I knew. I mean, it really didn't hurt all that much. I might be in here for a few more days, and if there's a fair chance I'm developing some additional complications, FML. Well, at least I'm alive. If you read this, please don't be like me. Do better. Particularly as you get older, ignoring potential health maladies if you're not feeling well, just sweeping it under the rug and assuming that you'll feel better, one of the worst things that you can do. So, lesson learned for OP, and hopefully some of our listeners today will not make that same mistake. Hyreth Stars commented, "Similar experience. I felt off and kinda sick, and had some cramping discomfort that I attributed to my period/endometriosis, so I just dealt with it with Tylenol and heat pads. It finally got so bad I did go to the ER, where they didn't do any sort of ultrasound or physical exam at all, but told me I had a UTI. I didn't. Nope, exploded appendix that had caused an ovarian torsion, and I was going septic from necrotic tissue. Spent 7 days recovering in the hospital." Our next story is, "Today I freaked up by picking up a cute little baby mole. We're in the country and animals are always coming inside. The cats take care of the small ones and leave tiny bodies on the carpet for me to find. Yesterday, it was a baby mole. I was rhapsodizing about its tiny, iridescent whiskers and velvety body before setting it back outside. Today, there was another tiny body on the carpet. Being half blind, I brought it up to my face for a better look. Just as I realized it had no legs or whiskers, I got a whiff of it. It was a turd. It was far away from the litter box and had no litter on it, just a dark piece of matter that was mouse-sized. Since I'm told to keep typing, I also say that the cats themselves sometimes leave mice on the floor. Cold, squishy half mice. I know they set mice out. I once found a row of 2.5 mice. Well, I'll just say this, I would rather pick up a harmless turd than a potentially harmful animal, so kinda gross, but could have been so much worse. Stella Bench replied, "Oh man, reminds me of my old dog. He was constantly getting acorn nuts stuck between his toes and would bring them in and lose them in the house, constantly finding acorns in my house. One day I pick one up and it's squishy. Inspected closer and it was a cat turd. I threw up. My husband laughed his butt off." Our next story is, today I freaked out by having turned off highways on Google Maps for 10 months. It took me 10 months to get behind it. Last year, sometime I recognized my Google Maps sometimes giving me really strange route suggestions, but I thought maybe Google really knows the best efficient way without really questioning it. As I'm really bad at geography, I just drove to what Google said. Sometimes the ride was so long that I used Apple Maps or Waze, and often I ride and thought, geez, how's this highway closed again or has so much traffic that it's taking me on another route? Background: last July I was on a motorbike trip and wanted more beautiful, chilled routes. Let this be a reminder to everyone, check your GPS to make sure that highways are turned on. PPI replied, "It's totally wild to me how some people never actually look at the map. Beyond that, they're often completely non-geographic in their cognition, in the same way that some people are colorblind. It's probably an understudied form of learning disability. The world is just a black void of floating, disjointed points. I do a lot of land deals, and sometimes people can't even interpret a screenshot of their own property with high-res satellite imagery. You have to show them in person." Innocent Healthy replied, "I'm a reasonably intelligent person, but I'm extremely navigationally challenged. My brain doesn't interpret maps well. I have to take a route several times to remember it, and if there's a small deviation to that route, I'm completely lost. I used to get lost in school a lot as a teen. I get lost in large buildings as an adult, like if you're visiting someone in a hospital or if you're at a hotel. I got lost on a cruise ship. After explaining this to my fiancé while we were taking a walk in his neighborhood, that we'd done several times before, he wanted to test it by having me lead the way back. He was amazed that I could not do it. I led us in circles, went down the same road twice because I came at it from the opposite direction, so it was completely new to me. Eventually, he had to tell me where to go. Turns out I'm autistic, and that likely has something to do with it. Our next story is, today I freaked up by assuming my travel luggage was empty before letting a coworker borrow it. My 37-year-old female, young coworker, 20-year-old female, was talking about what she needed to buy for her upcoming trip across the country. I was trying to be helpful and offered for her to use my suitcases for her trip so she can save money. I get the suitcases out of my closet and make sure the smaller one is inside the bigger one and make sure that there's nothing in the bigger suitcase pockets. After every trip, I always make sure to empty out my suitcases before I put them up, so I didn't think about looking in them. Today, I freaked up by assuming there is nothing in the smaller suitcase since I hadn't used it in 2 years. Why did I do this? If I could turn back time, I would. I drop off the suitcases to my coworker and go home feeling happy about the good deed I've done. A day later, I get a message that starts off with, "Don't be embarrassed, but you left something in your suitcase." I'm like, okay, maybe it's underwear or something. Nope. Next, she sends me a picture of a self-pleasure toy I barely remember having. She even asked me if she needed to bring it to me. I was like, for the love of God, just throw it away. True story, I don't know why it was in there, other than maybe I was thinking it was a good place to hide it from my nosy kids. I'm panicking. I'm like, please tell me this is not happening, and she's so young. She was so mature about it, and I'm over here planning to quit my job and leave the country. I immediately had to tell my husband what happened, and we cosmic laughed for 2 whole hours until we were so sore. I tell my husband everything. Even he's like, how did it get in there, and why didn't you check both suitcases? For the life of me, I wish I knew why I didn't just look in the smaller suitcase. My first day seeing her after this was super awkward, but we just laughed and went on, and I apologized profusely. Yeah, I mean, that's just one of those you have to laugh it off. There's no escape from the shame of that, of all things, being left over and discovered by someone else in your suitcase, but it is what it is. Live life a little. Twist Feria replied, I'm impressed that the 20-year-old even brought it up. I think I might just be like, holy crap, and throw it away and never speak of it in hopes you would never know or remember it was in there. That, or I would take it out, use the suitcase, put it back in, and give it back to you in the hopes that you wouldn't use it, the suitcase, anytime soon. Our next story is, today I freaked up by carrying pepper spray in my hip purse. Like the title says, today I freaked up by carrying pepper spray in my hip purse. I, 22-year-old female, work at a job that ends around 9 p.m. Closing takes about 30 minutes, and then I have to take a 20-minute walk home in what's mostly a rural area and has low visibility. Last year in December, I got attacked going home after one of my shifts. I'm all okay now, but it was scary and police were involved. So I got myself a small bottle of pepper spray. To skip all the in-between from December to now, I ended up carrying this pepper spray in my hip purse at all times. Work, going for a walk, mall, anything and everywhere. Well, recently, while working, I began to have these small coughing fits, like my throat was spicy. I'd just cough out of nowhere. I thought it was from vaping, something that I quit about a few months prior, but I thought it was catching up to me. Then there was me washing my hands at home, then eating something with my hands, like an apple, and having this sudden burning on my tongue. Or the time that I just touched my tongue and ended up sitting down with my mouth and somehow eyes burning on the couch. I thought all these were unrelated incidents. I clean a lot at home, so I thought the burning was from not washing my hands well enough or something. But today, I was looking for my bus card to fill it up. I keep it in the same pocket as my pepper spray. I noticed that it was slightly damp, and so was the fabric of my bag. I pulled all the pocket's contents out, and it was clear to me the spray had been leaking everywhere. I used a baby wipe to wipe off the bottle, and as I suspected, it was all orange and wet. As I was cleaning it off, I inhaled it and began coughing. Then I put two and two together. Everything still has a light smell of pepper spray. I can't wait to get home and wash it all off. Oh my god. Now, I'm no expert on this kind of stuff, but I would suggest maybe just getting another bag and a new can of pepper spray. This sounds like it's beyond the point of salvation. Alan CB replied, well, now you know it works. Sounds like a defective unit or a poor safety that allowed it to be triggered in your bag. I've carried pepper spray for nearly a decade as part of a continuum of response between verbal and deadly, and never had one accidentally leak or get triggered. My favorite brand is Palm because they offer units with pocket clips that keep it handy, and their safety is pretty solid. They're also very small, which makes them easier to carry and less noticeable to others. Something to look at when you replace your current one. And OP replied to this, thank you. Yeah, I was told at the store I got it from not to worry and that it has a safety option that prevents it from triggering by itself, but it seems that it was definitely defective. I'll be looking into getting a new one and I'll throw this one away. I'm definitely not looking forward to repeating this accident. Our next story is, today I freaked out by taking a trip and forgetting my passport. Last weekend, I booked a flight from Toronto to Rome because I've always wanted to see Italy and the flight prices weren't terrible. I had had a bit of a lucky weekend with one of the slot apps called Jackpot City or something, so I figured why not do something for myself. I was so excited about finally doing something impulsive and fun that I spent the whole week planning what I'd see, bookmarking nice spots that I saw on TikTok and even learned a few basic Italian words. So I go at Pearson, checked in online, and I'm feeling great. It would have been my first time in Europe, by the way. I get to security, reach for my documents, and my passport isn't there. It's sitting on my desk at home. I've never felt so crap. I had planned every freaking thing, like everything, clothes, places, that I'll go to every detail, but to this day I have no idea how did I forget my passport. There was no time for me to go back to my house, pick it up and run back, so I missed the flight. Tomorrow morning I had to rearrange a trip to later this month and canceled my days off from work and pushed them for further up this month. Well, at least you have a passport and just forgot it. It's not like you forgot that you needed a passport. Still a salvageable situation. It sounds like you were able to kind of make lemonade out of the lemons. You're still going to have your trip and you're going to have an amazing time. Simon Hans commented, "I'm so glad my parents ingrained their document paranoia in me. I check that I have my passport at least 5 times between leaving home and checking in for the flight. I also get to the airport multiple hours too early in case security lines are long, much to my wife's dismay." Our next story is, "Today I freaked out by throwing away my girlfriend's art during bulk trash day." Basically just the title. My girlfriend and I started renting at this new house, our first time living alone together, so we had a lot of boxes we wanted to put out for bulk trash day. We have Republic Services come and pick up our trash cans on Friday afternoon, so I had done the trash on Thursday afternoon after getting home from work. There were quite a few boxes, so my girlfriend offered to help, but I declined so that she didn't have to get out of bed. For context, she had been there when the movers she had hired had put 2 of her paintings she had bought at auctions, at least $6,000 worth, in protective wrap, and then inside large boxes to protect them during the move. They had put them on the side of the garage, leaning by themselves. So when I went out there, we had been stacking all our actual trash recycling boxes about 3 to 5 feet away from where the art was leaning on the wall. The pile was entirely separate, sitting on the ground stacked up. Not paying attention, I took out our recycling and trash cans first, then threw all the boxes in our trash pile in between the 2 cans so they didn't blow away. After cleaning the pile, I mindlessly walked over to the garage and saw the 2 more moving boxes, big ones that were standing up by themselves and were heavy. Without thinking to look and check, I put them out with all the other trash, closed the garage, and didn't think about it again. As of me writing this, it's that Friday afternoon. I was walking out of work when my girlfriend gave me a call, crying to tell me not to freak out, but that she thinks I'd thrown away her art. I didn't instantly put 2 and 2 together, but then she reminded me that the art was leaning on the wall, and it clicked. I instantly felt so goddamn stupid. She tried calling Republic Services to either communicate to the garbage truck or to maybe see if we can check the dump, but we got the 24 to 48 hour response wait for the truck, and they said the office for visitors at the dump had already closed for the day. This was one of the more avoidable and stupid freak-ups of my life. My girlfriend is furious, and especially considering she had mentioned the art leaning on the wall previously, that she offered to help. I feel so embarrassed and ashamed of myself. I typed this right after it happened, so excuse any of my poor spelling and grammar. FML. Yikes. Yeah, and unfortunately it seems like these are one-of-a-kind items that can't just be replaced. I mean, all you can really do is apologize and try to make it up to her in any way possible. It was an honest mistake. She is right to be angry, though. Let this be another lesson about the importance of communication. Wiley Segova replied, "Google the case of the guy that was trying to convince the town to dig up a whole landfill for a USB drive that he threw away by accident years earlier. Was offering to pay millions, but the town was being all difficult. In your case, the 2 paintings are not only protected by the cardboard, but also they should be near the top of the landfill." Alright everybody, that is all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment down below, and if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. I got nothing else for you. I'll see you all next time.